My name is Paz. I escaped my ex who almost killed me with my daughter in the house. My mom and my dad, it seemed like the perfect relationship. So I did have great role models growing up. I knew what I wanted in a relationship. I met this guy back in 2022, back in December. It was around the time my daughter was born. I was in the hospital with her. She was in the NICU and we were talking, and he just seemed like a great guy. His personality was there. He had good looks. I was pregnant, and he knew when I gave birth to my daughter. We met on one of the dating apps. He had a great job. He just seemed like a good person. He was a great dad. It just seemed like he had a lot of respect for people, for women. I found out pretty soon after we got together that he sold this. Not too long after, he heard a couple phone calls with him and his baby's moms, and it wasn't the best phone calls. Like, he was always talking to her, calling her bad names. There's times where he just started being really mentally abusive, and so there'd be times where we would get into fights and he would start being really mentally abusive at first, calling me names and kind of being intimidating. Every time we would get into it, it ended with him strangling me. He choked me, and that was when I knew, I have to get out of here. I have to call my mom. And so, I would go back home, and then he would get a hold of me and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I'm gonna do better. I was just mad. I would always go back, which, I shouldn't have, but I went back several times, and each time it just seemed to get worse and worse. The first fight kind of seemed like, I made him mad, but over time it was like I didn't really do anything. You could tell he had anger issues. Every time I left, it was because he got physically abusive and he choked me. He'd start hitting things, and there's times where his son was there and he would just do things in front of his son, and his son would come up and be like, hey, are you guys okay? And he was like, yeah, we're fine, go watch TV. So he would always hide it from his son. It was pretty sad because I had my daughter in the house. She wasn't even one yet. It was just crazy, the amount of times that I went back, because he got better at telling me each time. It's what I wanted to hear. He always told me what I wanted to hear, if not better than I wanted to hear. And every time I went back, I think I felt okay with it. It wasn't like I forgot, about what he did. I think he said what he needed to say to make me feel okay, things are gonna get better. When it came to my daughter, I don't know why, I never felt he would ever do anything to my daughter. He always said he loved my daughter like his own, and he treated her like his daughter. I never was worried when it came to my daughter, his son, because his son was always there too. But for whatever reason, I kind of just started to be okay with going back. After time and time again that it happened, people started telling me, hey, this isn't okay. You're being abused. You're not listening to what we're telling you. It's gonna end badly. My mom was always telling me from day one after I ended up back at home, the first time, dude, what are you doing? You need to stop. Your daughter is involved. This is not okay. Last time I went home happened again because he got physically abusive. I went home, and my parents, thankfully, they let me come home after I was an hour. Them. I ended up coming back home, and I believe I was only here for about 2 days. Me and my mom got into it, and that was always my escape, my always way out. I'd pick a fight with her and then be like, all right, well, I'm out. So that only lasted about 2 times, 2 days before I ended up leaving again, because he once again got better at telling me the things I wanted to hear. I thought I loved him. When you think you love someone, you're willing to fight for them, but it wasn't true love. I was basically blind. The last time we were together, because he got better at telling me what I wanted to hear, so I went, and I didn't realize it was going to be the last time till what happened, and everything was fine up to that point. He made it seem things were fine. He was going to change. He was going to get therapy. He was going to go to anger management. It just happened to be his birthday, October 2nd, and everything was fine that day. You wouldn't have thought that there's gonna be that moment. It was that night I decided I was gonna make dinner, and it was gonna be spaghetti, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna cook for you, it's your birthday, and we decided on spaghetti. He had his son that night, and his son was playing games, and so I started to cook, and then his son wanted to play games with me, and so he was like, yeah, go ahead, go play with him. And so I went and played with him, and then the round of the game was over, so I came back, and he kind of had an attitude, and I was like, well, what's wrong? Are you okay? He just seemed off, kind of seemed like every other time before. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what's wrong with you, but like I said, I would cook dinner, and he just kind of blamed it on the fact that he had to make his own dinner on his birthday. I told you I would cook, but you told me to go play with your son, and so that's just what I did. Starting with that's what started it. Shortly after, he just kept picking things to throw at me, to fight with me about, and I was like, okay, dude, this is like ridiculous. He went to blaming me about like having sex with his brother, which is what he always did. That kind of seemed to be like the cause of our fights throughout the relationship. So he just sat there and accused me of having sex with his brother. I was like, no, like I don't even like talk to your brother, like I don't want your brother. Things started to escalate, and then I was like, well, I seen this not going good, and I was like, I want to leave. And so I kind of was on my phone, and I was going to text somebody, but he was harassing me in a way. Like, I was just like, I want to leave. And he stops me, and he's like, you're not leaving. I sat there and I was like, no, like, just let me leave. And he's like, why do you want to leave? Like, what are you leaving for? And so basically throughout the night, I kept telling him like, no, I didn't sleep with your brother. I didn't have sex with your brother. And then he basically told me like, I know you did. If you just tell me you did, like, I'll let you go. So I sat there and I kept telling him like, no, I didn't, because I wasn't gonna confess to something that I didn't do. He basically wouldn't stop questioning me about it. All right, maybe if I just tell him, what he wants to hear, like maybe he'll let me leave. So eventually I was like, yeah, I did sleep with your brother. And then he got off about that, and at some point like we were fighting about that, and then I told him, like, I kind of switched it, and I was like, well, I didn't say that, but I was thinking about it, is what I told him, because I was just trying to avoid what was about to happen. And then I remember I told him, because he asked me, why are you leaving, and why do you want to leave, like, is there somebody else? And I sat there and I told him, I was like, yeah, I want to go back to my baby dad. And then he proceeded to talk it, called him the N-word, said like he never wanted to be there, like, you think he's gonna want to be there now? I figured after telling him everything that he wanted to hear that he would let me go. It turned into, I tried to walk past him and he wouldn't let me go, so he just started to get really abusive, being like mentally abusive, emotionally abusive, to like physically abusive. All I remember from that point is that he dragged me around by my hair to go into any room that he wanted me to go in. There was like several times he strangled me throughout the night. This all started because of the fight about the dinner. It went from that to his brother to my baby dad. He dragged me around the house by my hair. He strangled me 10 times. My number one thought was that I just, I wanted to take my daughter and leave. I just wanted to take my daughter and get out of there, which wasn't gonna happen. Throughout that night, it lasted up like 13 hours throughout the time that it started till the end of it. All I remember was that I got strangled several times, and it started because he accused me of things just because he felt like it. It was like, no, get your ass in here, like, I'm gonna drag you by your hair, like forcing me to go wherever he wanted me to go. There was a time that night where he forced me to lay down on the bed and covered my mouth and my nose so I couldn't breathe. He just proceeded to rape me. I couldn't say anything. He choked me too, and every time he choked me, it was with both hands. And I felt like that whole night, like, there's no way I'm making it out of here. That entire night, like, he had a gun. And I remember at one point, like, he cocked it. I thought I was gonna get shot. I was like, this is insane. Like, I don't know what to do. Every time, like, I screamed, he would tell me to shut the up, you're gonna wake up my son, which was just insane. And it's even crazier that that's what he had to say, knowing, like, there's 2 little babies in this house that, like, are gonna be traumatized if he sees or hears, like, what he's doing. And, from being strangled 10 times throughout that night, to being drugged in every room, to, having a gun that he's waving around and thinking, like, I'm gonna get shot. My daughter's not gonna have a mom. Like, this is it. All because, like, I told him what he wanted to hear, which was never what he wanted to hear. I felt like he always had a plan, like a motive, like, I'm gonna kill this bitch by the end of the night. And it was just a horrific night. I mean, there's so much trauma and PTSD that came out of it. I remember when this all started happening, he specifically told me the only way you're gonna make it out of this house is in a body bag, which is crazy because it's specifically what my mom told me before I left. When we got back together, I told him, we kind of laughed about it, and I was like, oh, this is what my mom's saying, like, that's insane. And then he used those words against me. And then as soon as I heard that, I was just like, dude, my mom's right. I'm gonna die. All I was thinking was that, like, I should have listened. Throughout the night, there was one point, like, in the middle of it, that he told me specifically these words: I will kill you, I will shoot you, and I will go sit down in due time. So I fully believe that his intentions were to kill me. And then I remember at the very end of the night, he made me lay down after he raped me. He wrapped his arms around me so I couldn't go anywhere. And he said, you're not going anywhere. You're not leaving this house. Anytime you go somewhere, no, I'm gonna be right there. You're not leaving. You're mine. She's my daughter. You know, you guys aren't going anywhere. We fell asleep. And then I remember waking up. I don't know what time it was because, you know, he had broke my phone and my laptop, so I couldn't get a hold of anybody. So I had no way of, like, checking the time, no way of, like, you know, texting anybody while I woke up, he was still sleeping. But I was like, asked him, I was like, hey, can I go use the bathroom? Like, I really gotta pee. He was just like, yeah, I don't give a go do what you want. And so the only bathroom, because it's the basement, and the only bathroom was like right at the top of the stairs. I went pee because I felt like he just, you know, heard me like run to the door, like that was it. And so I went pee, and then I just thought real quick, and I was like, dude, I gotta get the out of here. Like, I gotta get the out of here. And so all I remember is like running. Like, I picked up my glasses because I remember him like taking my glasses off at some point and like throwing them. And basically, like, I couldn't really see anything the rest of the night. And so I picked up my glasses, unlocked the door, and like I booked it out of the house as fast as I could down to the gas station. I had to leave my daughter there. She was 10 months old. And the reason I did that was because I thought if I picked her up, he was gonna kill us. He was gonna kill us both. So I ran out of the house about like 3 minutes down the street to the gas station. The first person I wanted to talk to was my mom. So I called her, like I ran in, I was like, hey, I need to use your phone, I need to use your phone. And then the gas station lady was like, what is going on? Like, are you okay? Like, yo, the black eye, you need to call the cops. I was like, no, I want to talk to my mom. Like, can I just use your phone? I called my mom, and she told me, like, Paz, you need to call the cops. So I called the cops, and I was scared. Like, I was like, dude, he's coming to look for me. He has my kid. Like, he's coming. And so I called the cops and hid behind the gas station counter and waited for them to come. Like, they came, and all I remember is telling them, like, yo, he's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me. Mind you, know, my daughter's still at the house. His son was there, and they were questioning me, and then they wanted to take me to the hospital to make sure I was okay. I was like, I'm not going anywhere until I know my daughter's okay. Eventually, they told me, one of our sheriffs is at the house. Your daughter, you are gonna be okay to go. So I left. And while I was, you know, at the hospital or whatever, like, I didn't realize what else was going on. My mom had been on the way. I just remember, like, thinking, you know, them telling me my mom's on the way, and I was like, she's on the way, and I was shocked because the last time I left, like, we were both mad at each other. So there was a part of me thinking that, you know, she's not gonna come. She don't give a all I remember is them telling me, you know, like, she's on the way. What I didn't realize was, like, there was still stuff going on after I left. And when my mom showed up, she had gone to the gas station that I was at and wanted to know, like, where her daughter was at, because there was nobody there at the time that's new. She knew that's, like, where, you know, I called from. And then she, like, looks around the corner and sees, like, a bunch of cop cars just at this one house. And she was like, dude, that has to be a house. So she goes and checks, and that was the house. And she sees, like, several cop cars, several SWAT team people, all with their guns pointed at the house, telling him, like, you need to come out, you need to come out. And there's, like, a drone flying over the house, like, trying to get him out of the house. All I remember is my mom telling me, you know, like, she fell to her knees crying because she didn't know if I was okay. She didn't know if, you know, my daughter was gonna come out alive or not. They did get my daughter out of the house. You know, she was given to my mom, and my mom was, like, on the other side of the street. All she wanted was, you know, to run over and wanted to make sure everything was okay. But she's being told by the cops, like, no, you have to wait, like, you know, you need to stay over there. And so they did bring my daughter out in her car seat, and she was given to my mom. And at the same time, his son was brought out, and they told my mom, like, here's her daughter and here's her little brother. My mom's like, little brother? Like, she don't have a little brother. And my mom tells me that she just, like, hugged him and was like, it's okay, mijo, it's okay. He ended up being, you know, came out of the house and got put in a cop car. And they did ended up finding the gun. I believe they said that he hid it in like a vacuum cleaner bag of some sort, and that's where they found it. And the next thing I know, like I'm at the hospital and I just see my mom walking with my daughter. I was just like, wow, she came, like I didn't think she wanted to see me. After that, everything, I knew I was fine. I was at the hospital and my mom was there, my daughter was there, and I knew he had got picked up and taken into custody. I almost lost my life. My mom could have lost her daughter, could have lost my daughter, but it changed me in so many ways, good and bad. PTSD after that whole night has just been insane. PTSD, it doesn't go away. It just kind of gets a little bit easier to do it. You will always have that trauma. You're always going to have that PTSD in some way, shape, or form. But it hasn't been an easy road from then till now. It's been insanely hard, with a lot of therapy, and, I feel like just talking about it just helps. So it's been a long road, but there's times where I just cry. There's times I just think about it, like it'll be fine, I'll be doing homework because I'm in school, and then all of a sudden, like, I'll go from reading an article and then the next thing that's in my head is what happened that night. And it's like I can see it perfectly for how it happened, like his face, the house, the room, the bed, like I can see everything exactly how it happened. And it's just insane, like how bad that type of stuff just affects you in every way possible. Since then, I've not dated anybody. I've been single since then. I'm in therapy. It does help. It's insane how bad it affects you, because like to this day, like I don't leave the house unless it's to go to one of my daughter's appointments or one of my appointments, or like I don't leave the house unless it's with family. I can't really like bring myself to date anybody because like that trust is just gone. You just learn to not trust anybody. And it's like watching all those Dateline episodes, and because I used to watch those all the time, and my mom would show me and she's like, look, this really does happen. Now thinking back, I'm like, dude, it happened to me. But that could have been like a Dateline episode. And so it's insane. I am sharing my story because, one, talking about it helps me get through this. Two, I want others to know, like, if things like this do happen, you hear about it in the news, but you're like, oh, that doesn't happen to anybody I know. This does happen. It's a real thing. Like, you need to talk to your kids about this. You need to, be careful your own selves. Like, online dating is just not the way to do it. Like, be old-fashioned, go out there, meet people, because then you'll like really, get to know who somebody is versus talking to them online and finding out, all this about them and then possibly almost dying. So I feel like you just got to be careful who you're talking to, because whoever that person says they are isn't who they are. Don't just trust people so easily.